You are waiting for permission. You probably wouldn't put it that way. You'd say you're not qualified yet, that you need the certificate first, or a few more years of experience, or for somebody with actual authority to look at what you're doing and confirm that you're allowed to be doing it. So the writing stays in the drafts folder. The idea stays unshared. The work sits at 90%, waiting for a permission slip that is never, in fact, going to arrive. So today I want to introduce you to the person who had less permission than anyone in this entire series and did the most with it. 900 years ago, a woman in the Rhineland had no access to a university because women were barred. No ordination, no formal authority, no legal standing to speak publicly on almost anything. By every institutional measure available in the 12th century, she had no right to a single one of the things she went on to do. She became a composer whose music is still being recorded and streamed today. She wrote works on medicine and the natural world. She wrote what is considered one of the earliest surviving morality plays, with music, centuries before opera. She invented an entire language. She went on public preaching tours in her 60s and 70s. And she wrote letters to popes and emperors, and they wrote back. In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you the strategy she used to create authority out of nothing. The single idea that let her work across medicine, music, and theology as though they were one subject. And the fight at the very end of her life that reveals what she actually believed. This is episode 6 of History's Pattern Weavers. Leonardo showed us the guilt of the unfinished. Hedy Lamarr, the pain of being seen as one thing. Franklin, the web instead of the ladder. Ibn Sina, that the walls between subjects aren't real. Ada Lovelace, what happens when someone tries to amputate half of you. Hildegard of Bingen shows us the one every single person watching this needs. What to do when nobody has given you permission. Subscribe if you want the rest of the series, and let's begin. She was born in 1098, roughly the 10th child of a noble family, and as a child she was given to the church, not sent to school, given. By her teens, she was enclosed at a monastery at Disibodenberg, under the care of a woman named Judah, in conditions closer to permanent religious confinement than to anything we would call an education. And from very early childhood, she saw things. She described a light, a kind of luminous presence she could perceive while fully awake, eyes open, alongside ordinary reality. Here's the part that I think will land for a lot of you. She told almost no one. For roughly 40 years, she sat on the central experience of her entire life for 4 decades out of fear. Fear of being disbelieved, of being called mad, of the consequences for a woman claiming to see anything. She was in her 40s before she said it out loud. 40 years of silence. If you have been sitting on something for 10 or 20 or 30 years waiting to feel ready, then understand that the woman who became one of the most extraordinary polymaths of the medieval world did not begin until she was in her 40s. The turn came around 1141. She described a vision that essentially ordered her to write down what she saw. She resisted, got physically ill, and then began. The result was a book called Civius, which took her about 10 years. Now watch the strategic move because it's brilliant, and it's the answer to the permission problem. She could not claim authority from any institution. There was no route. So she claimed it from a source that outranked every institution in her world. She presented her work as divine vision, and she consistently described herself as unlearned, a simple, uneducated woman, merely a channel. She famously called herself a feather on the breath of God. Now, she was not uneducated. Read the work. There is deep scriptural fluency, natural observation, structural sophistication. The humility was partly sincere and partly a strategy, and it worked perfectly. By insisting she had no personal authority, she made her authority unchallengeable, because you cannot dismiss a woman for lacking credentials when she isn't claiming credentials in the first place. She's claiming something above them, and it landed. Word reached the top of the church, and the reigning pope reportedly read her writings aloud at a synod and gave his approval. From that moment, a woman with no institutional standing had something better: endorsement. She used it immediately. She fought to take her nuns out from under the abbey that housed them and founded her own monastery at Rupertsberg. Over the objections of the abbot, who did not want to lose them, she won. And then, from that base, in the second half of her life, she produced the body of work. Around 77 pieces of music, and it does not sound like the plain chant of her era. It leaps, it has enormous range, long soaring lines, a distinctive quality that makes it instantly recognizable and is exactly why it found a modern audience 800 years later. She wrote a work on the natural world, cataloging plants, trees, stones, fish, birds, and animals, and a companion work on medicine, causes of illness and treatments, drawing on the practical healing knowledge of her monastery. She wrote a dramatic work with music, performed by her nuns, in which the virtues and the soul and the devil all appear as characters. It is one of the earliest surviving morality plays, and something close to a precursor of opera. She invented a language, about 1,000 words, with its own alphabet of 23 letters, one of the earliest constructed languages we know of. In her 60s and 70s, an age when most people in that era were finished, she went on preaching tours, traveling the Rhine and speaking publicly to clergy and lay people. And roughly 400 of her letters survive, exchanged with abbots, bishops, kings, the emperor, and ordinary people writing to her for advice. Now, the question this series always asks, how is one person doing all of that? And her answer is the most beautiful in the whole series. She had a single idea that made all of those fields into one field. She called it viriditas, greenness, greening power. It's the life force she believed flowed through everything. The vitality that makes a plant push out of soil, that makes a body healthy, that makes a soul flourish. One current running through the botanical, the physiological, and the spiritual. Once you hold that idea, look at what happens to her supposedly separate subjects. Medicine is not separate from theology because illness is viriditas blocked, and healing is the greenness restored. Botany is not separate from medicine because plants are that same force in concentrated, usable form. And music is not decoration because music is what the soul sounds like when the greenness is flowing freely. She was not a woman with 6 careers. She was a woman with one idea, expressed in 6 mediums. The plants, the songs, the medicine, and the visions were all the same investigation, and she moved between them as easily as you'd move between rooms in your own house. That's the pattern weaver lesson, and it's the deepest one this series has offered. Sometimes your scattered interests are not scattered at all. Sometimes they are many surfaces of one underlying thing you have not consciously named yet, and the day you name it, your whole life reorganizes itself around it. Now the ending, because it's the moment where everything she believed gets tested. In her final year, around the age of 80, she permitted a man who had been excommunicated to be buried in her convent cemetery. The church authorities ordered the body removed. She refused. She reportedly went out and obscured the grave herself so it could not be found. So they punished her convent with an interdict, and the specific punishment matters enormously. It meant her community was forbidden from singing the liturgy. They took away the music. An 80-year-old woman, at the end of her life, under sanction from the church that was the only institution she'd ever belonged to, and she fought it in writing, and her argument was not about rules. She argued that music is not ornamentation, that song is how the soul remembers what it was made for, an echo of something divine, and that silencing it does real spiritual harm. Notice that this is a theological argument made by a composer about a physiological and spiritual reality in a legal dispute. Every thread she ever wove deployed at once in defense of the one thing she would not give up. The interdict was lifted shortly before she died in 1179. And then one last detail that this series keeps running into: her formal recognition took a while. She was widely revered for centuries, but the church did not formally canonize her until 2012. That same year, she was named a Doctor of the Church, one of only 4 women ever given that title. 833 years. So here's what to take with you. Hildegard of Bingen had no permission. She could not get it, and she did not wait for it. She built her own authority out of the only material available to her, and then she used it to do 6 people's worth of work in her 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, all of it flowing from one idea she had been carrying in silence for 40 years. Nobody is coming to give you the permission slip. There isn't one. There has never been one for anyone in this series. The credential you're waiting for would not have helped Ada Lovelace or Hedy Lamarr or a woman in a 12th century monastery with no legal right to speak. Start anyway, especially if you think you started too late. Next time in this series, we meet a man who was, in his lifetime, the most famous scientist in the world, more celebrated than almost anyone alive, whose way of understanding nature as a single, interconnected system inspired Darwin and shaped how we see the planet. And then the age of specialization arrived, decided his approach wasn't rigorous enough, and very nearly erased him. Alexander von Humboldt, and what happens when the world specializes and leaves a pattern weaver behind. Before you go, tell me in the comments, what are you currently waiting for permission to do? Name the specific thing and name who you're waiting on, because I suspect that when you write it down, you'll notice, as I did writing this, that the person you're waiting for doesn't actually exist. Thanks for watching. Now go do the thing nobody said you could.